Thanks for joining us this full hour of global news. Here's what's coming up on the world today. One of the deadliest nights of Israeli airstrikes over Gaza recorded on Sunday, with 78 people reportedly killed. French police arrest 33-year-old man after 5 bodies were found in a flat northeast of Paris. Plus, extreme weather continues across the world, even as floods put a dampener on Christmas celebrations in Germany. A warm welcome to the program, everyone. Our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. A Merry Christmas to one and all. Welcome to the world today. I'm Joke Rogers. Let's get right into it. First off, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society says several people have been injured after Israeli artillery shelling targeted its headquarters in Khan Yunis. Among other events today, there have been reports of explosions over the Egyptian Red Sea resort city of Dahab, as well as explosions over the Red Sea near Yemen. The UN has also reported demolitions in Forash Beit Dajan and in Deir Balut, saying the demolitions include residential buildings and service-related infrastructure. Israel says it has been engrossed in what it calls a multi-arena war since October 7th, while forces have detained at least 55 people in the occupied West Bank in overnight raids. Going to Gaza now, where plumes of smoke have been seen rising over the settlement as Israeli airstrikes began hours before midnight. There were strikes reported on Monday, that's Christmas Day. Over Sunday night, Israeli airstrikes killed at least 78 people in Gaza, according to Palestinian health officials. Residents and the media say Israel stepped up its air and ground shelling against al-Burej in central Gaza. While 2 people have been killed, several more injured following an Israeli airstrike on Sunday in the west of Rafah. Local residents said the area was supposed to be safe, but that homes were hit and destroyed without warning. Israel says 8 Israeli soldiers were killed in the Gaza Strip on Sunday, bringing to 154 its published combat losses since its ground incursion in response to the Hamas attack on October 7. The death toll on the Palestinian side, however, is above 20,000. Well, Christmas Day was anything but peaceful in Gaza as injured people were rushed to Khan Yunis Hospital following one of the deadliest nights there since the war began. The health ministry says the death toll has been rising, same for the injured. It says 250 Palestinians were killed in the 24 hours to Christmas, with 500 more injured. Well, according to World Health Organization, supplies were delivered over the weekend to Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza, as well as 3 other hospitals. The efforts were threatened by the relentless hostilities and increase in the number of wounded. Israel denies targeting militant civilians in its military operations in Gaza and accuses Hamas of building tunnels and military infrastructure in densely populated civilian areas. However, Hamas and smaller militant ally Islamic Jihad have both sworn to Israel's destruction. They are believed to still be holding more than 100 hostages from the attack on Israel on October 7.
Back in Al-Shifa, the largest hospital in Gaza, for the 3rd time this week, where it's still a case of absolute misery. With people still on the floors, it's almost impossible to walk. Critical cases, doctors and nurses absolutely scrambling, people crying out that they need blood for their son and daughter who are dying. There's almost nothing that this team can do, this very small clinical team can do to help all of these people. It's absolute chaos still. And actually, this is even after the hospital staff told us that the fighting has quieted down for the last few days. It's nonstop, 24 hours a day, serious and critical injuries coming in, and a very small staff to help them. There's the risk of a famine here in Gaza, actually, and even here in the hospital, everybody says that they only have rice. They have very often only one meal a day, and they're hungry.
And staying with the healthcare in Gaza, volunteers say they struggle to look after the ill and injured because they do not have enough medicine or equipment. To make up for the inadequacies, including infrastructure, Palestinian nurses and other healthcare volunteers set up a medical camp in Rafah to take care of displaced patients. Doctors there say fuel shortages and insufficient medical supplies were making working conditions there even more difficult, aside from the high number of patients and overuse of the dialysis machines causing them to malfunction on a daily basis. Most of the cases arriving at the tents are children, according to the doctors, and many suffer from diarrhea from drinking contaminated water. Is proposing a three-phase plan to end the war in Gaza. The first phase involves suspending military operations for 1 to 2 weeks so that Hamas could release 40 hostages, including women and the elderly. The second phase includes an agreement of the exchange of bodies of Hamas militants held by Israel for the bodies of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. In the third phase, Israel would return 6,000 Palestinian prisoners in its jails for the remaining Israeli hostages, including soldiers Hamas is holding in captivity. During the ceasefire, Egypt would lead talks to reunite Palestinian factions, Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, who would then jointly appoint a government of experts to run the West Bank and Gaza ahead of future elections. Now we want to bring in African Affairs analyst Ajike Chude to talk to us more about the situation. Ajike, Merry Christmas to you and thanks for sharing your holidays with us.
Thank you, and the compliments of the season too.
Wish you the same. So what are your initial thoughts on the three-phase plan by Egypt?
Well, at least some people or some governments are beginning to back words with action, because all of this, while you hear either condemnations of the violence that is going on in Palestine, in Gaza, either admonishing one side, to stop the violence, and then maybe admonishing some other foreign powers not to get involved in the crisis and exacerbate it even further. But there has not been anything. Nobody has been able to put back up their words with action, with practical action. And so I think that is the essence of this. And so when I heard that the Egyptians had already made a proposal, I said, well, at least this is something that they can work with. So it is for both sides to, and all the other interested parties, their allies, to look at the proposal closely that Egypt is putting on the table, to see how practicable it is and whether it addresses the issues of major concerns to the warring parties and their allies. And so I think it's a good thing. I'm told that, I read somewhere that the Israelis are studying the situation. They have not said an outright no, and that is positive. And as for Hamas, the Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas leader, just came back from Egypt when he went to discuss the proposal with the Egyptian authorities, and got back to Qatar to brief some of his lieutenants that are stationed in Qatar. And then I think the Islamic Jihad leadership also has gone to Egypt to also look at this proposal. So I think it's a step in the right direction. At least no side has outrightly come to reject it, and that's a good sign.
And it sounds like a plan targeted at, harmonizing governance over Gaza, ignoring the problem at hand that Israel believes that Hamas militants have sworn to destroy Israel. And that's what the Israeli military is fighting the Hamas militant group in Gaza for.
Yeah, well, obviously, I agree with you absolutely that it hasn't addressed the fundamental issue. And the fundamental issue is to how to achieve a permanent peace. Because when you achieve peace, piecemeal, you are not addressing the fundamental issues. Eventually, you're going to have another breakout, and then we are back to square one. So it is a good step in the right direction. But part of, again, this issue is between Israel and Hamas. This particular crisis, Israel and Hamas, of course, brought about by the unfortunate October 7 massacre of Israelis by Hamas militants. But beyond that, again, is the fact that you need to be able to go beyond this present situation and know how to address this matter even further. And I think that is the critical issue, at this particular point in time. Like the Hamas has in its charter, and the Palestinian Liberation Organization used to have that. That is the destruction of the state of Israel. As that they were irrevocably committed to doing. And so eventually to be able to get the Palestinian Liberation Authority organization to talk with Israel, that charter had to be removed by the Palestinian Authority under Yasser Arafat. And as a result of that, they had a lot of, groundbreaking discussions, especially the Camp David Accord, the Oslo, agreement also. Ultimately, it did not yield much fruit, but at least that was a basis for discussion. So Hamas continues to retain that onerous charter that they are committed to the destruction of the state of Israel. And a lot of people are not addressing this particular, aspect of the charter at the international level. For as long as it's, a government, or a people are irrevocably committed to the destruction of other people, there will be no basis for peace. That is not to say, look, that Israel has no fault in whatever is going on, or Hamas is at fault in whatever is going on. But you can't have that, the destruction of a people, as a basis of your relationship with those people. Then it's simply that it doesn't provide avenue for any form of peace, at any particular point in time. So it is something that I think the world also needs to discuss as they look for ways to bring about peace in the Middle East.
So one of the talking points is, yet another prisoner swap. Do you think Israel might be open to that, or be considering that once again? It already did this a few weeks ago, and even that received some sort of backlash. No, Israel, I think Israel had always been open to a prisoner swap. It's something that has always happened, and the Hamas also has been open. They want their people back. Both sides would want their people back, and so it's also part of conflict resolution issues, especially in wartime situation. The exchange of prisoners is also of serious importance to all sides. But I think again, when you look at Israel's avowal that it's not going to stop until they have been able to destroy Hamas beyond redemption, until they are able to ensure that Hamas is not in any position again to pose a threat to Israel, then that in itself could also become, an obstacle. So somewhere along the line, again, there has to be a change of mind. Israel says it's not going to stop this offensive until it is able to achieve its objective. And then this agreement also, in a way, prevents Israel or puts a rein on this desire or ambition of Israel to complete the mission the way they have defined it. So it is really a problem. But I think that they have done deals, especially since this crisis started, in terms of prisoner exchanges. And I think there are more deals to be done. Yes, the initial one received a backlash, especially in Israel. I think the backlash was that all the hostages, they were not able to achieve the release of all of the hostages. And so you had demonstrations in Israel
So Israel will be, I believe, open to the release of hostages. But again, the details will have to be worked out. I think it is something that both sides will be looking towards to, but they have to work out the details first.
Right, and until those landmark deals and negotiations are successful, as you put them, the calls continue for civilian protection in Gaza. You have healthcare volunteers also, crying out about being overwhelmed with the number of people, the wounded, the casualties, the number of bodies coming in all the time, especially women and children, and even the elderly who are very vulnerable, at this time. How do you view international response to the casualties?
Yeah, well, it's of course there a lot of countries are consternated and are shocked at the level of violence and the number of injured and wounded. I mean, and those that have been killed in the process, especially the vulnerable women and children. And so there has been this talk all this while for a ceasefire by both sides. Of course, we've had a ceasefire before. So that humanitarian services could be restored in these places. But again, it's not you need a ceasefire that would endure, because I mean, after you have been able to get into I mean, humanitarian services are brought to these places, and then only for a period of 2-3 weeks, then they go back to hostilities, and then more hostage, more injuries, and that situations are also created where you also begin to call for ceasefire. So these are some of the problems. These are some of the challenges. Obviously, something needs to be done in the long term. And it's important that they look at the long-term solution. I think perhaps maybe the Israeli situation, I mean, the Egyptian proposal would work, especially when it has to do with unifying the whole of Palestine, that is the Gaza and then the West Bank, and to have a new government in place, have elections in those places. I think this would seem to be a more long-term, and lasting proposal if it is well implemented, because that would ensure that Hamas is no longer in charge of the territory of Gaza, having been weakened considerably, and then hopefully when you bring in moderate as a result of elections and all that, then perhaps we can now begin to talk about longer term solution to the crisis engulfing Gaza at this particular point in time. So it's important to restore humanitarian services, but it is something that needs to be done on a longer term, not just a 2 or 3 week situation. But for that, I think the United States has to play a more serious role, because right now it is only the United States, by virtue of the influence it has with Israel and the historical relationship with Israel, that can, assert the muscle, the influence that is needed to get Israel to move in a particular direction. So the US needs to be much more involved in that level.
Right. Thanks again, Achike, for sharing your thoughts with us on this situation.
It's been a pleasure, Joke. Thank you.
Well, speaking of hostages being held by Hamas militants, family members were in the Knesset as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised that Israel would not succeed in freeing the remaining hostages in Gaza without applying military pressure. The families interrupted his speech with chants of "now, now, now." A deal brokered in late November by the US, Qatar, and Egypt saw the release of more than 100 of the estimated 240 hostages who were taken captive to Gaza during the attack on October 7. Hamas and the allied Islamic Jihad have rejected the Egyptian proposal that they relinquish power in Gaza in return for a permanent ceasefire. And just outside the Parliament building at the Israeli Defense Ministry complex, more families waited for cabinet ministers hoping to stop their vehicles and plead with them for help with their loved ones. They laid out hourglasses, inferring time is running out for each of the hostages still in Hamas captivity.
We're standing here because the cabinet is gathering here to discuss a deal, the deal that's on the table, and we're here to tell them that they have our back and that we trust them and believe them that they can make brave decisions, and we expect them to do anything they can to bring back the hostages now.
I don't know who is going to come, but if it will be the Prime Minister, I will tell him that he is responsible to what happened in October 7, and he needs to fix it. He needs to bring them back as soon as possible, because they don't have any time over there in the tunnels, and their life are in danger. And we hope that they will make a deal as soon as possible, because we need to save them.
And staying with the protests, this time taking place in America's New York City, hundreds called for a ceasefire in the Israeli-Hamas war. They carried flags and displayed various signs advocating for a ceasefire. Spokesperson for the New York Police Department said one officer was injured as they tried to maintain the peace in the area. And gym rats are still maintaining their schedule despite the war. Many are doing this in honor of Israeli soldiers killed in the war. Working body and mind, they say it's important to relieve stress and to stay focused as the war continues.
Here workout, it's a workout that we're doing for a memory of generally soldiers that died in the war. Today we did this workout for Gal Eisenkot. It was the son of the previous general of IDF. It's a workout that's mostly it's a long one, hard one. And we want to make sure that people get suffered during the workout. When you do this for the warriors, it's first of all make you feel a little better, make you feel that you do something for him, something to remember him. So it can be emotional for a few moments, it can be hard for a few moments, but after that we're doing the actual workout. And I don't want to say having fun doing the workout, but we feel a lot better when we do the workout for him, and we suffer for him, and it's a way to deal with it. It makes me, for 1 hour, just forget everything outside of this gym.
It is still the Yuletide season, and as can be imagined, it was a bleak Christmas for Christians in Gaza, especially for those who fled their homes due to the Israeli strikes. The Saba family is one of such, and for them, Christmas Day yesterday was they simply gathered around a bonfire with their Muslim friends. The war, they say, has taken away the Christmas spirit as they constantly think about the people that are dying, for the houses that are being damaged, and for the streets and the city that's gone.
كل الشغلات هاي اللي احنا يمكن هي بتحسك باجواء العيد اكثر من انه تكون ما فيش هاي الاحتفالات.
Welcome back, everyone, to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, where one person has been killed and two others injured in an overnight Ukrainian attack on the Crimean port city of Fedosia. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, Ukraine used guided missiles launched by aircraft to carry out the strike. Russia also confirmed one of its large landing ships was damaged in that incident, an attack Ukraine has fully claimed responsibility for. Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Yuri Ikhnat said that the operation was planned by the armed forces and other security forces. Russian installed head of Crimean Sergei Asyonov said 6 buildings were damaged and some people were evacuated to temporary accommodation centers. And in what appears to be Russia's most significant gain since the capture of Bakhmut in May, Moscow has announced that its forces have gained full control of Marinka, a town in eastern Ukraine. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu announced this to Russian President Vladimir Putin at a private meeting in St. Petersburg. President Putin, who congratulated the defense minister, said control of the town will allow the Russian forces to move enemy combat units away from Donetsk, and troops will have the opportunity to reach a wide operational area. Marinka, mostly described as a ghost town, was once home to 10,000 people. Russia's last major success on the battlefield was the capture in May of Bakhmut, theater of some of the bloodiest fighting yet.
Донецка боевые подразделения противника. Первое и второе.
Let's get more on this. The VOA's Miroslava Gondadze joins us from Warsaw. Thank you for joining us. A Merry Christmas to you, and it's great to see you today.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Right, so first off, did the war in Ukraine make the headlines in Poland during the Christmas Day celebrations?
I would not say it's headline, but it's on the minds of Poles as well as it's on the minds of all the Eastern European flank countries: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, all those countries who actually suffered from Russian invasion, Russian occupation in the last 40, 60, 70 years. So they are concerned about the war in Ukraine, and they are buffing their security. I have been to Estonia and Finland, Latvia and Lithuania in recent days, and at the army base, Estonian army base with U.S. troops here, and I can tell you that they are trying to be ready for any possible development if in case Ukraine would not be able to defend itself.
Right, so now to the attack in Crimea. Russia has confirmed Ukrainian strikes did damage a warship in the Crimean port city of Fedosia. Does the government also acknowledge the setback this poses for the Russian Navy?
Yes, I actually had a chance to talk to Yuri Ignat. You quoted him as well as the commander of Ukrainian Navy, and both of them confirmed the destruction of Novocherkassk ship. It's a big ship that can carry a lot of ammunition, and there are some information that Iranian drones were carried by that ship. However, the commander could not confirm or deny that information. But explosions were very serious, and the commander of Ukrainian Navy told me that this ship would not be able to be restored. So this ship is totally destroyed. He also told me that with this Ukrainian attack on the Russian fleet in the Black Sea, Russia is withdrawing some of their big ships from the Black Sea, and the Black Sea, because of that, will be safer, as Ukrainian commander said, and Ukrainian command control more of that area, as we know that they created already the corridor to ship the Ukrainian grain through the Black Sea. So all this is the goal of this operation is to help to push Russian fleet out of Crimea and out of the Black Sea. And the commander of Ukrainian Navy told me today that every ship that has a Russian flag will be a target of military target of Ukrainian defense forces.
And Ukraine has not made any major attacks on Crimea in a while. Do you think this could be regarded as a major win for the military?
We can say that yes, it's celebrated and acknowledged as one of the major wins. The Air Force of Ukraine told me that they used planes and they used cruise missiles. Delivered or given to Ukraine by the partners, by Ukrainian partners, and obviously the Russian claimed that they destroyed some of the planes, but that's not true. It's not confirmed. Ukrainian forces are not confirming that. The Russian as well claimed that they destroyed some F-16s that have not been delivered to Ukraine at all. So we have to kind of question what the Russians are saying. And I have to say that I talked to some of the experts today, and they said that Russia is losing 1,000 troops every day. So since the beginning of December, they lost 16,000 troops on the battlefield in Ukraine.
And in a couple of months, it'll be 2 years since the war started. Has European support for Ukraine strengthened in any way?
We cannot say that it's strengthened. We can say that there is questions about American support. As you know, there are discussion in the Congress, and American Congress did not pass that law yet to support military support for Ukraine and Israel. So that discussion will be. They will restart again in January, as well as here in Europe. However, European countries are more and more getting to terms that Ukraine is actually defending Europe from possible escalation from Russia, and they are gearing up and understanding that supporting Ukraine, they support their own security, and that's becoming more and more clear here in Europe.
Well, Miroslava, thanks again for your time today, and do enjoy the holidays.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to some other stories. Police in France have arrested a man suspected of murdering his wife and 4 children in a knife attack early on Christmas Day. Their bodies were found on Monday night in a bloodied apartment in a town north of Paris. Local prosecutor Jean-Baptiste Bladier says the mother and 2 daughters had been stabbed so many times it was impossible to determine how many blows they had received. The family's 2 younger sons appear to have been suffocated or drowned. Police detained the 33-year-old father at his residence in a nearby town on Monday night. The prosecutor has opened a murder investigation into the incident. Elsewhere, China is warning the United States against implementing what it calls negative content that's related to China. It comes as the United States passed and signed the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024, which China opposed and expressed strong dissatisfaction for. U.S. President Joe Biden had on Friday signed into law the defense policy bill that authorizes a record $886 billion in annual military spending and policies such as aid for Ukraine and pushback against China in the Indo-Pacific. But for Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning, the bill interferes in China's internal affairs and urged the U.S. to stop manipulating the Taiwan issue. She added that China will take resolute measures to firmly safeguard its sovereignty, security rights, and interests. And a quick check on the weather now. Several provinces in southern Thailand have been hit by severe flooding after days of heavy rain. According to Thai authorities, flooded streams overflowed into roads, cutting off access to some of them. The widespread flooding also affected thousands of households, and residents were advised to move their belongings to higher grounds. The government has ordered the Army and Health Ministry to provide assistance to those affected, while the Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation are working with local authorities to drain the flooded areas as quickly as possible. Well, it's a similar situation in the German state of Bavaria, as heavy floodings exacerbated by rainfall caused the nearby river to burst its banks. According to authorities, most streets near the riverbank were underwater as at midday on Christmas Day, with many gardens and cellars being flooded as well. Emergency services began operations by securing boats and movable property and pumping water out of the cellars. The crew say they expect the floodwaters to peak before cleanup operation begins. The river normally has a level of around 1.5 meters, but on Christmas Day, the water level rose above the 3-meter mark. According to the Flood Information Service, the river is expected to exceed the 4-meter mark in the evening before floodwaters begin to recede. Almost 12 years ago, a flood reached a significantly higher peak, which is now engraved on the wall of a house. Welcome back to the program. We're in Africa now. In Benin Republic, the sport roller hockey is gradually gaining attention thanks to former French pro player Joachim Kamchweng is firing up young people's interest in the roller skating game. Take a listen.
In Cotonou's Aya Center, Joachim Kamchweng, a 42-year-old hockey instructor, has ignited a fervor for roller hockey amongst the city's youth. Kamchweng has introduced roller hockey to Benin's sports landscape, a recent addition that has rapidly gained popularity. In just a year, his initiatives have fostered a vibrant club with nearly 100 enthusiastic players, paving the way for an eagerly anticipated and competitive championship on the horizon.
It has been approximately a year since we started the hockey activity, so it's very recent in Benin, after all. But in a record time, today we have a club with around 100 players and other clubs coming up, other school teams arriving in 2024. So ultimately, we will have a very competitive championship in maybe 6 to 8 months.
For the young kids engaging in the sport, there's an introductory training for those who perhaps do not know how to skate.
When I first came, they took me to Mr. Kukam's office and they asked me if I knew how to skate. I said no, I wouldn't have even come. But suddenly, the day they gave me the skates, I started skating, falling and falling, and then 2 weeks later, I mastered it.
Acknowledging the demanding nature of his pursuits, Kam Chung says his life is a whirlwind of passion and commitment.
My life is incredibly busy and hectic, yet it's also abundantly passionate. I consider myself fortunate to be engaged in a job that I love and to have the opportunity to implement long-held ideas, especially focusing on the development of sports and social activities. It's a passionate but quite tiring job.
Kam Chung's impact transcended Benin's borders. European coaches, captivated by social media glimpses, flocked to witness the burgeoning talent firsthand. Impressed by the displayed skills, several young players earned opportunities for mentorship abroad, potentially opening doors to European leagues.
Africa's Gauteng Provincial Health Department says 194 babies were born between the stroke of midnight and midday in the province on Christmas Day at the Steve Biko Academic Hospital in Swane. A special moment unfolded with the birth of a set of twins. The first 12 hours of Christmas Day saw the birth of 103 boys and 91 girls, marking the highest number recorded during the period. Health Mek Nomantung Komo Ralekoko extended a warm welcome to the newborns, as shared by the department spokesperson Motelateli Modiba.
The Gauteng MEC for Health and Wellness, Nomantung Komoralehoko, today congratulated parents of newborn babies who were delivered at public health facilities across the province. About 194 babies were born today between 12 midnight and 12 in the afternoon. The MEC had visited one of the facilities in the morning, where she presented visibly excited mothers of newly born babies with gifts and celebrated with them as they welcomed their bundles of joy. She used the opportunity to actually encourage parents of newborn babies to ensure that their babies are registered immediately after birth through the Department of Home Affairs offices across all Gauteng public hospitals. She also urged parents to ensure that their bundles of joy are immunized at regular ages as set out in the Road to Health Care booklet to protect them against diseases such as polio, hepatitis, measles, and meningitis, emphasizing that immunization is free across all our health facilities.
When you come up to buy a t-shirt, buy a raffle. All right, I'd like to ask all these people to get off of the sand dunes that's protected by the state of Florida. Let's do it. One, roll up out there.
What's Christmas without the traditions? From jumping into large bodies of water in freezing weather to Christmas runs, we seem to have seen them all, except, of course, the surfing centers of Florida. Hundreds of them and a few elves took to the waves just before Christmas for the annual surfing day on Cocoa Beach. Now, in its 15th year, the event draws hundreds of surfers and onlookers, with many dressing in elaborate Christmas beach gear. The tradition began as a simple family beach day, which has now grown into a beloved tradition for both locals and visitors. It's also been a good distraction from politics and daily hassles.
My favorite thing is this, it's just this small town feel. that it's the gathering of people from near and far, seeing familiar faces, and everyone that you see is happy to see you. So, I mean, it's high fives, it's hugs, it's pictures, it's all the good vibes of Christmas.
Today I'm looking around and I see this crowd, and it's a sea of red and green. Everybody's happy. Everybody's strong. No one's complaining about Donald Trump. No one's whining about Joe Biden. Everybody's here to have a good time, and it's happening right now.
Well, finally, royal portraits seem to be a thing this Christmas as all eyes turn to the future of the British royal family, talking about Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, children of Prince William. A second black and white photo has been making the rounds this month, following an earlier one showing the whole family, which was released on December the 9th. In this second picture, all three children are seen sitting on a wooden bench. The picture was taken by Josh Shiner, a British photographer known for his work of sweeping landscapes, big skies, and beautiful faces. The Prince and Princess of Wales and the whole family at the Sandringham in Norfolk for the Christmas celebrations. And that's our show today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joker Rogers.